Nacho Sundays, every Sunday at 6 p.m. Live on YouTube on the EBL exclusive Battle League Network. Hosted by Fibonacci Brown.
Nacho Sundays, Nacho Sundays, Nacho Sundays. Nacho Sundays, Nacho Sundays, Nacho Sundays. Nacho cheese, beefy, nacho veggie, nacho supreme, nacho Sunday.
Nacho Sundays.
Nacho
Where it's not your
Sunday.
opinion, it's Nacho's opinion.
Nacho
Hosted by
Sunday.
Fibonacci Brown.
Nacho Sundays. Nacho cheese, beefy, nacho veggie, nacho supreme,
Nacho Sundays. Where it's not your opinion, it's Nacho's opinion. Hosted by Fibonacci Brown.
Nacho Sundays. Nacho cheese, beefy, nacho veggie, nacho supreme, nacho Sundays. Nacho Sundays. Nacho Sundays. Nacho Sundays.
Hosted by Fibonacci Brown. Don't forget to go to FibonacciBrown.com to get your copy of Growing Down.
Nacho Sundays. Nacho Sundays.
Brought to you by the exclusive Battle League Network. EBL. What up, though, family? Did you miss me? How's your Sunday going? First of all, I want to welcome you to the 6th episode of Nacho Sundays. Whereas not your opinion is Nacho's opinion. And yes, you heard me correctly. The 6th episode. We've been at this thing for 6 weeks, y'all. Y'all have been coming here every Sunday to hear Nacho's opinion. And I'm a little overwhelmed. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. If you've been coming here, you understand that my chat is a huge part of the show. We definitely engage to talk about the topics that come up in our nacho. And this week will be no different. We have some really good things in our nacho to devour. But before we get to grubbing on our nacho, I want to first get some announcements out there. First of all, if you like the Nacho Sunday song, Nacho Sundays, if you feeling that beat, you need to head over to Twitter and check out I Make Hit Music. That's right, at I Make Hit Music. There you will find 2-1. He makes beats, among other things, when it comes to music and media. Check him out. Also, don't forget to come over to EBL Network to check out Wave and Blaze. Be there every Monday from Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, starting at 7 a.m. It's the best morning show, period, hands down. I show up in the mornings. I get everything except the weather. They're going to cover a plethora of things. You get to talk to some of the chat where they get pulled up into the conversation on a live. Dave is the host. If you've ever seen Dave's hairline, you will ultimately want to pull up just for that. The rest of the show is a bonus. So make sure you are showing up to Wave and Blaze Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m., the best morning show on the internet, hands down. Also, we have more shows on the EBL network, like King's Court, where EBL King will also be engaging the audience, pulling people up in the live, and they can talk about any number of things. I can't even say concisely what can come up in conversation over there. It's always a good time. Make sure you're pulling up for King's Court with EBL King. Also, we have got a special partnership. EBL and Bar You to Death are coming together for the birthday Baz for Baz. Yes, you heard me correctly. Tomorrow, there will be a live YouTube event on the Bar You to Death channel where we are going to be celebrating Baz, OG Baz, for his birthday. It is the birthday Baz. Make sure you are there. It's going to be at 8 o'clock. I would suggest that you get there a little bit early, because if you know, like I know, on Bar You to Death, you want to be in the place as early as possible. It's going to be live battles and a birthday. And I know you heard me say this is going to be a partnership with EBL. Our very own EBL King is going to be hosting the event. So there are going to be live battles. King's going to be hosting, and it's Baz's birthday. Y'all make sure you show up tomorrow. That's going to be at 8 o'clock on the Bar You to Death live stream. Also, don't forget to, I know I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but it's going to be relevant on today. Make sure you are going to YouTube and putting in your search engine West Seattle Menace. Almighty Wayne has put together an amazing album. If you don't go check that album out, I don't know what you're doing with life. Don't even admit it to nobody if you haven't heard that album. I wouldn't tell nobody, because it's that good. So make sure you are checking that out. Also, make sure you head over to FibonacciBrown.com. I am an author, you guys. I have written a book called Growing Down: The Observation of the Masculinization of the Black American Woman. I need you guys to head over to FibonacciBrown.com. There you will be able to purchase your own copy. And for a limited time, I will be sending out autographed copies. So make sure you hurry up, get your autographed copy at the introductory price. You can also make donations on that page. And this is how you'll know if you found the correct page, because this will show up. This is the cover of the book, Growing Down: An Observation of the Masculinization of the Black American Woman. Make sure you check that out. That is at FibonacciBrown.com, FibonacciBrown.com. I will be looking to see you there. Also, we have some behind the scenes treasures that we cannot overlook when it comes to the EBL network, EBL as a league, and what goes on behind the scenes. With that said, make sure you check out commodityproductions.com. Commodity is definitely the glue to a lot of the things that we produce media-wise over at EBL. So if you want to check out some of his handiwork, make sure you head over to commodityproductions.com. Also, look forward to Late Night L's with Brills. Brills is going to be hosting a late night show on the EBL network. And I'm telling you, if you have ever heard some of the Brills philosophies, I can't wait for this show. Like, I cannot wait for this show. So again, it's going to be called Late Night L's with Brills, coming soon to the EBL network. We are putting together some great things for you guys with the NACHO Sundays, Wave and Blaze, King's Court, the live tomorrow for Baz's birthday. You got some music to listen to at West Seattle Menace. And last but not least, make sure you're checking out the fourth round. Our Is We Poddin' family has put together some amazing interviews with some of the top tier battlers. We're talking C3. We're talking Danny Myers. Make sure you head over to the fourth round on EBL Network. You won't be disappointed. These interviews are amazing. Great questions, great intellectually thought out questions to kind of pull out some of those details that make these battlers unique and skilled at what they do. Check them out on the EBL network. That's the fourth round with the Is We Poddin' family. Make sure you head over there and check that out. I see my chat is definitely pulling up. I appreciate you guys. Again, thank you for coming to check me out on Sunday, where it's Nacho Sundays and where it's Nacho Opinion. It's Nacho's Opinion. And I see Tim Good in my chat saying, let's go. I appreciate you. And speaking of Bar You to Death, he is in the chat as well. Thank you for pulling up to celebrate Nacho Sundays with me, 6th episode. All right, Dave. Dave is in the chat, you guys. Dave is the host of Wave and Blaze every Monday through Saturday starting at 7 a.m. If you've ever seen Dave's hairline, you are going to want to pull up for that show on a daily basis. We have Wayne Almighty in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Look, okay, show out now. I see Oflo in the chat. You know, Oflo has stopped for a nanosecond doing his amazing, hands down, best freestyle show on Twitter, Beats, Bars, and Buds, to come and check out Nacho Sundays. I'm honored, Oflo. And one of my favorites is in the chat with the heart eyes. Hey, 2-1. All right, you guys. So if you are ready to get into the nacho, like I'm ready to get into the nacho, over here on Nacho Sundays, we start with our nacho cheese. And in the nacho cheese portion of our show, we are going to talk about ways to save money, make easy money, any kind of way that we can make our money work for us and not make us work so hard for the money. And with that said, I got a question. Have you ever signed up or ended up with a phone service that you wish you could have tested out first to see if their coverage was going to be what you needed before you signed up in this contract for however long? You probably done got a phone you got to pay for on installment. They got you locked into the contract for however long the lease is, and you end up finding out that the service is kind of whack. Don't you wish you could have tried that out before you actually signed up for the service? Well, it seems like T-Mobile has heard you, and T-Mobile has a program where you can test out their coverage without giving up your current provider, without having to buy a phone from them. All you have to do is download their app. So if you download this app, that's the T-Mobile app, you can try free for 3 months their coverage without switching carriers and without having to give up your phone number. It's something that they are calling Network Pass. Now, if somebody would have told me that about Sprint, I wish somebody would have given me this information where I could have compared the two, or even with some of the others. Like I know here in Michigan, it's Cricket. I don't know if Cricket is everywhere, but I know sometimes they're very good in certain areas, and sometimes it's like, forget about it. So T-Mobile has made it to where you can compare your current carrier to them without having to pay anything additional. All you have to do is download their app. It's called Network Pass. Once you've downloaded the app, you open it, you follow the instructions. It allows you to compare in real time performances against your current provider. So if maybe there is somebody out there who does have a comparative app where you can see what your time is, but maybe it's not real time. T-Mobile is offering you an app where you can look at it as it's happening. So you get this real-time comparison. You don't have to commit. You get to keep your phone and your phone number, and it's unlimited data. So again, if you head over to T-Mobile, download their app, you are looking for the Network Pass. You can free for 3 months try out their network without having to make any commitments. If you don't like it, ditch it, unload the app, stay with the courier you have. If you do like it, go on from there, dump who you got and get with T-Mobile. I'm not trying to push it either way. All I'm saying is that I can appreciate somebody letting me try it before I buy it. You understand, especially with these phone carriers, because these phone people think they think they're cars these days. Have you looked at some of the insurances on covering your phone? They got deductibles on a phone. This stuff is getting ridiculous out here. So allowing me the opportunity to be able to try it before I buy it, I can appreciate that, T-Mobile. I'm going to pass that nugget on down to you guys. If you try this and it works for you, maybe you're going to end up switching from your current carrier and going over to T-Mobile. Make sure you come back to Nacho Sundays. Get in the comments and let me know that it worked for you. I want to be able to share your story on Nacho Sundays. I would love to find out if the things that I'm talking to you guys about in the nacho cheese portion of the Nacho Sunday show, if it works for you. I really need to get your feedback. So if you're trying this stuff and you're like, you know what, Nacho, I made me a couple of dollars. I got me a couple bucks doing that thing you said on episode 2. Let me know. I want to share your stories. If we can save some money out here, if we can make this money work for us where we don't have to work so hard, I would love to share those stories. We need some good news anyway. So make sure you come back to Nacho Sundays and let me know, yeah, this is working out for me. Okay, I'm going to slide over to my chat because I see my chat is really, y'all show up. I appreciate y'all. Again, thank you for pulling up to Nacho Sundays, where it's not your opinion, it's Nacho's opinion. This is the 6th episode. And I see Commodity pulled up. I was giving you your flowers earlier. Make sure you check out commodityproductions.com. He is displaying some of his talents over there. He also has hidden talents, being a lot of the glue that helps us out behind the scenes at the EBL network. Oh my goodness. Chuck AR has pulled up to Nacho Sundays. I appreciate you. He said it's his first time. I appreciate you for pulling up, Chuck. Dave is bragging in the chat. You guys see him talking about T-Mobile game. We need some feedback, Dave. How are they as a carrier? Is it even worth it to try out their Network Pass app to see if the comparison is worth it against other carriers? What's your feedback, Dave, since you T-Mobile gang? Okay, EBL King is in the house. I see him in the chat. I appreciate you guys. So we are going to move on to devour some more of our nacho. And after we do nacho cheese, we get into the beefy nacho. In the beefy nacho, we talk about conflict wherever it may exist in the world. And that can be anything from politics to celebrities. But this week, we are going to talk about us versus food. Yes, we have a beef with food, guys. Do you know that there are foods that are banned in other countries that are easily accessible on US shelves, as if there's nothing to be worried about by consuming these foods? We have foods that have awful dyes in them to make them different colors. These dyes have negative impacts on our body. We have instances where we are getting further and further away from growing our own food and more dependent on going to the grocery store or somebody else providing our food needs for us. They are talking about food shortages. And if that is the case, how many of us would actually know how to put our hands in the dirt and regrow some food? They're also talking about poisons that are showing up in our foods, metal shavings, things that are being that should be really thrown out or trickled out of our food, or actually showing up in our food. People are finding things in baby powder solutions where they're using this formula to mix for their babies. And when they are looking at these formulas, these powders pre-mixed, they have things in them that shouldn't be there. And this is something that you are giving to your baby. So we need to look at us versus the food. If you really want to damage the mass of people and weaken them, attack their food. We need to really look at that. We need to definitely think about how we can sustain ourselves if our normal channels of going to get food are interrupted, or if they experience shortages. I know you guys remember back at the beginning of the pandemic, people thought that the thing they needed the most in a time like that was tissue. And people stocked up on tissue. People were fighting in the stores about tissue. People went and wiped tissue off the shelf, no pun intended. But at the same time, we didn't have the necessary food stock to continue to sustain ourselves after those shelves were empty. So we need to really think about what we are doing to sustain ourselves when it comes to feeding ourselves, feeding our families. How can we make sure we have what we need? Are we doing what we need? One thing I found interesting is that some of the things that we may go to the gas station or the convenience store or the bodega to get on a regular basis are literally banned in other countries. I found that farm-raised salmon, I know a lot of my pescatarians, you guys like salmon and you want to be able to have your fish and eat it too, I guess. Well, farm-raised salmon is actually banned in some countries because of the things that are accessible to farm-raised salmon that can be contaminants. So if that fish is consuming those contaminants and you consume the fish, that dot isn't hard to connect. So what we want to look at is what is going on in these salmon farms. We can start with that salmon farm. Normally, you would think that it's a fish, it should be wild caught. So if you have a whole farm for fish and you don't normally go to a farm to fish, that should already get your attention. So from that, you might want to look into what they're feeding these salmon. I have come across some information on the internet where they have said that the diet that they feed these salmon isn't the best. It certainly has a far cry from the diet of wild caught salmon in their natural environment. I also read that they have something, it's called astaxanthin, which is fed to the salmon to give them the orange color that it has. So if you put that together, the salmon that you think looks good, looks fresh, looks like it, they just snatched it out of the river in the back of the grocery store, that's actually a dye that goes by the complicated name astaxanthin, that is giving it this orange color. So it's not even an organic color. So farm raised salmon is going to run more of a risk of having some contaminants, having some artificial additives that make you maybe think that it's healthier than it actually is. So another thing I found that was banned in other countries, but we have it readily. I know I can find it I could throw a rock and probably hit a case, is Mountain Dew. Now, this really shouldn't be a surprise. If you've ever been to any major comedy show, there's probably at least one good joke about Mountain Dew and its effects. Like, I think you can probably run a vehicle on Mountain Dew. I think you can really pour it into the gas tank and start your car. That's just me, though. But Mountain Dew is banned in other countries. It contains something called bromide. Bromide is found in flame retardants, and it can build up in the body and lead to memory loss, nerve problems, and skin issues. So if you are even mildly experiencing some of these challenges, if you drink Mountain Dew on a regular basis and you got bad acne, if you drink Mountain Dew on a regular basis and you got nerve problems, I'm saying it might be worth looking into. I'm not trying to say anything about Mountain Dew. I'm just saying that what I found is that it was banned in these other countries for these reasons. And the United States is like, give me the case. So look into this. I'm trying to give you some nuggets so that you can do your own research and have your experience with the information. Because here on Nacho Sundays, where it's not your opinion, it's Nacho's opinion, I think this is stuff you need to know about and check into. Another thing that I found that was banned in other countries, but we can readily access it on every shelf. If you are a cold cereal person, brace yourself, okay? I know it might be some backlash. Frosted Flakes, okay? Honey Bunches of Oats, and drum roll, Rice Krispies, banned. Other countries said, nah. United States said, run it. Banned in other countries. Why? Because it contains something called BHT, which is a flavor enhancer, and it is a potential carcinogenic. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with what a carcinogenic means, it means that it can potentially cause cancer. It doesn't limit to what kind of cancer. It's just a potential to cause finger cancer, eyeball cancer, liver cancer, potential to cause cancer. This is in your breakfast cereal. This is in your Honey Bunches of Oats, your Frosted Flakes, your Rice Krispies, your Rice Krispies treats. You want to look into this stuff, because when it listen, we on Nacho Sundays, where it's not your opinion, it's Nacho's opinion. It's my opinion that when you're eating this cereal every morning because you're under the impression that these oats and things are going to be good for you, and then when you go to the doctor and they're like, we have to have a talk because the big C, and they don't they tell you they don't know where it comes from. They tell you they don't know how it started, but they're not going to tell you that it's your cereal. They're not going to tell you to look into doing a food diary so you can see what you're feeding your body and what your body is responding to as a result. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to get you set up for chemo. Okay. They're going to go and pick out their vacation spot because you just secured making sure that they've got a patient for a long time. And they're going to give you the pep talk to keep you strong for the radiation. So you have got to be your own advocate when it comes to these things. And if you're not, they can get you through the food. So yes, you guys, it's us versus food. We have to watch what we're putting in our mouths. If we don't get back to gardening, if we don't get back to growing our own food, some of your HBCUs, some of your Southern colleges, they are A&T colleges. Do you understand what the A stands for? That should tell you how important it is to make sure you are able to feed yourself and sustain yourself. The A stands for agriculture. You don't have much of a culture without agriculture. You got to be able to feed yourself. So if we're not getting back to looking at how to make sure we can depend on us and not someone else to eat, we got to be in trouble. They're talking about food shortages. They're talking about grocery stores are having their food lines and chains interrupted. I know you guys have been seeing what they're doing to water supplies. Guess what's in Ohio? A lot of farmland, a lot of the places that receive their food at the grocery store, they're getting that supply from Ohio. And there seeming to be a lot of people forgetting how to move about in Ohio. And it seems that when they have chemicals, for some reason, they end up in the environment in the worst way. So if we're going to keep depending on our foods to come from Ohio to reach our grocery stores, what are we going to do if that's not an option? What are we going to do if the rain pouring down over there to water that food is bad? And then the water that's in the rivers that nourish the environment there is bad. Like, what are we going to do? Do you know how to regrow lettuce? You know how to replant tomato shavings to grow a tomato plant? Do you know when is a good time to start planting? Do you know how long it takes before you can start to expect a harvest? We have to get back to these things. If you want to control the people, control how they eat. You're going to be able to really see your power if you can control how people eat. You'll also be able to see where you're not powerful when you can't impact how people eat. Eating is your livelihood. So, we make jokes about getting that bread, thinking it pertains to money. But no, you need to really figure out how to get the bread because you got to eat. So if you're depending on Meyer and them, Kroger and them, what is it? Publix? Help me out, my South family. Is it Publix? If you're depending on them, you ain't at least got you some herb garden or something. If you, let's say your green thumb is bad and you're not stocked up on herbs, at least try to start growing you some herbs. Herbs not only help to make our foods flavorful, but herbs are thy medicine. For my people who like to refer to the Bible, tell me where's the lie? Let the herbs be thy medicine. Where's the lie? Grow you some herbs. You can eat herbs in your food as seasonings. You can make teas out of your herbs to stay healthy and introduce another way to get the nourishment into your body besides sprinkling it in your food. It's worth it. We need to be able to figure out ways to take care of ourselves. What did we do before a doctor needed a big check? What did we do? We just fell off. We didn't have no recourse. We had herbs. We had good diets. We lived off the land. And we need to understand why that was so important and why we need to get back to that, because they making threats that I believe them. And I don't think they playing. And I want to be ready. So right now, you guys, we are gonna take a small break and give thanks to our sponsors, because we have reached half of our nacho. So I will be right back in a few moments.
A woman is the most potent expression of feminine energy in the harmonic equation of the human experience. Growing Down, an observation of the masculinization of the Black American woman, Volume 1. Get your copy at FibonacciBrown.com.
And we're back. I want to check out my chat because you guys were definitely giving me some feedback on the beefy nacho portion today, where it's us against the food. And Dave is saying, okay, so basically, it's not safe to eat anything out here. It's looking that way. Like, you definitely, I'm not going to say it's not safe to eat anything, but you definitely need to read what you are eating, because the United States is not going to do it for you at all. They are not screening. They like, when they said give me, what did they say when they put the Statue of Liberty in Harbor? Give me your poor, send me all your less fortunate. They feel like that about your food too. They are not going to police that part of it. So you need to. And if you think there are channels in place to police certain things, there are, but not the things that are going to build up in your body and turn into a disease that the doctor is going to pretend they don't understand, but somehow they've got treatments for. So you've got to be your own advocate. I'm seeing Jules in the chat. Okay, I appreciate you pulling up, Jules. And yes, Jules said it's really difficult because the bad foods taste so good and are kind of cheaper than the healthier options. And Jules, you know what? You're absolutely right, and you bring up a good point. I do want to I want to spend a little time in that, because this is what we have to start to think. Just because the food is cheaper should not be the measurement by which we choose to shape our diet. If you are someone who enjoys healthier foods and you likely are leaning towards an organic diet, with that said, you are an ideal candidate to do maybe micro gardening, and that's where you have a 7-day turnaround on your harvest. I'm going to let you guys look into that deeper. We're not going to delve into that here. I just want to give Jules a little feedback. That kind of person would likely want to start to grow the easier maintenance foods, your tomato slices, your lettuce caps. Those are things that you can start to grow yourself, so you're not repeatedly spending that extra money that is going to take for organic foods. By the foods being cheaper, instead of feeling like, my pocket, that should be a trigger. This is probably really bad for me. I probably shouldn't get it just because it's 2 for $1. I know that just because it say strawberry on it, it ain't nan strawberry in this Laffy Taffy caramel whatever. So that's just what that needs to be, especially to us as adults. We have to be better about our diets, because the older we get, the more our organs will begin to take the training wheels off and rely on us to already be in the habit of a good diet to sustain ourselves. So I know we have our pancreas doesn't work to full capacity after you reach a certain age. So you need to be able to already have the foods in place that support that. So if we can start to look at the cheaper foods being a trigger, if you are over, I'm going to say if you are approaching your 30s, it's time to let go of anything on the dollar menu. If it ain't a tossed salad, which I likely don't see that you would find, or even maybe fruit of some kind, you ain't got no business on the dollar menu. No business. That is for children. It's the kids meal, the dollar menu, and then the I'm not cooking tonight for adults. But you after 30, you ain't got no business on that dollar menu. I'm gonna tell you now, you keep eating that stuff and it's gonna turn on you. So Jules, I know it's cheaper. I know it might, you've trained your taste buds on the cheaper stuff. So the cheaper stuff right now does taste good. But the responsibility in that is that you've got to start to either spend a little more money for the healthier foods because it's better for your body in the long run, instead of having to go to the doctor more often for things that have built up in your body because they're not blocking anything out of that cheap food we buying. We got to do that. So it's worth it. Spend the extra money. If you wanted to do something nice for yourself, you might want to spend a little extra money. Same with your health. Spend the extra money, pay the extra for the salad over the cheeseburger. The long term, you will thank you for it. I see we got Bar You to Death is in my chat hanging out. I appreciate you for pulling up. Is We Poddin has pulled up. Make sure you are checking out the 4th round with the Is We Poddin family and their interviews over on the EBL network. And thank you again for pulling up to Nacho Sundays, where it's not your opinion, it's Nacho's opinion. This is the 6th episode. And if you can't tell, I'm excited about that, y'all. I really appreciate you guys pulling up with me. This means we have been at this for 6 weeks. And I'm feeling the love. I really am. So if you guys are ready, I'm ready. I want to dig more into our nacho, where we are going to get into the veggie nacho. And in the veggie nacho, that's where we talk about our health. Now, I know it sounded like in the beefy nacho, we were talking about our health, but that was us versus the food. And we need to make sure we know how to feed ourselves instead of depending on others. But over here on the health veggie nacho, we are going to talk about our emotions and the effects of our emotions on our body. Now, I know some of you guys that are watching, you are probably familiar with chakras. I know you've heard the language, even if you don't know what it means, even if you can't coordinate the colors to what it means. Blue is the throat chakra, white is the crown chakra. Even if you can't figure all of that out, I'm sure you've heard the language and you've coordinated that somewhere to mean that being in balance as a person means your chakras are in line. Well, one way to kind of connect what that means is to look at your emotions and where you impact your internal body with your emotions. Now, I know you like, Nacho, what you talking about? What you mean my emotions impact my internal body? Like, what are you saying? Help me out. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're an anxious person, meaning that you're anxious, you're a little scary, you're a little worrier, you're a little snatch around, to everything, just it's got you on edge. What part of the body do you think that would impact? Studies have shown that hyper anxiety or consistent anxiety has impact on your bladder and your stomach. Okay. And so if you think about when you're anxious, you might have a weak stomach. You might, I know for some of my battle rap family that's watching, how many of you guys out there are familiar with chess? The battle rapper Chess, not the game. He's known for being anxious on stage. And what happens? He has a weak stomach and he ends up throwing up or vomiting because he's over anxious, and he's always saying, no guys, relax, I'm chill, it's just nerves. That's him being anxious. So when you're over anxious or consistently anxious, that energy gets stored in your bladder or in your stomach, and over time that can cause challenges and issues. People have seen where ulcers develop or other stomach issues develop, where you have you can't keep food down. You can't eat certain foods. You become irritated. So when you're anxious or over anxious, it's going to definitely weaken your bladder or your stomach. If you're holding resentment energy on a consistent basis is stored in your gallbladder. If you are now on the flip side, when you experience the emotion of love energy is stored in the heart. So if you can connect what I'm saying, you can understand that carrying certain emotions consistently, not processing them properly, that energy gets stored in your body. And if it's the wrong kind of energy, it could definitely show up as a challenge for the organ that is stored in. If you feel shame, if you feel shame about something, that energy gets stored in your kidneys. So you might experience some kidneys challenges if you are ashamed of something, if you're on dialysis, or if you feel like you have a lot of bladder infections or something relating to your kidneys, you might have unprocessed shame where you just haven't dealt with that emotion. Maybe you don't know how, and just the human body doing what the human body does, it has to take that energy and put it somewhere because you haven't consciously made yourself aware that you even need to do something with it. So it's storing that energy in your kidneys, and you need to be mindful of that. That's why emotional intelligence is important, because if you don't process it properly, it can show up in your body, and it can show up in a disease, in an infection, in an irritation, or it could definitely show up in your organs not performing at their best because you haven't processed this energy. If you have a lot of grief, the grief can definitely be stored in the heart. It can definitely impact in the form of a broken heart, but grief can also be stored in the lungs, in the large intestine. One way I connect that grief can be stored in the lungs. I have definitely been to one too many funerals, and when you hear the sound of a loved one hurting about having to say that final goodbye, that belt from the lungs it's pure grief. So if you can connect that to understanding that grief is stored in the lungs, it can weaken your breathing capacity. A weakened breathing capacity can make you susceptible to challenges that already impact the respiratory system, things like the flu, respiratory infections when it starts to get cold outside, C19. If you are storing a lot of grief already, those things can be more of a challenge because they do have an impact on the lungs. So your lungs, your intestines. Grief can also be stored in the intestines. If you have I believe it's called IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. If you're dealing with something like that, you might need to look at some unprocessed grief that you haven't dealt with, that is making it difficult for your intestines to hold on to that energy. So as a result, it's giving you IBS. So you might want to look at these things and see, maybe do you have some unprocessed emotions that might be having an adverse impact on your body. So when you have people who are trying to line up their chakras and you making fun of them, These people are trying to process emotions. They're trying to process things that they maybe hadn't dealt with in their past so that they can be a more centered person, which ultimately does have a better impact on your body because you are doing something good for your organs. We generate a lot of energy when we think about emotions themselves. We could be holding on to a lot of unhealed trauma, things that we don't even recognize as trauma. If you grew up in a urban neighborhood as a child and you got used to hearing gunshots, that can show up as a trauma, and you might not even realize it because everybody around you is basically traumatized. So what we don't understand is that a lot of times everybody processes that trauma differently, and it can show up in our bodies. A lot of the epidemics in certain areas, certain neighborhoods, certain communities, a lot of those epidemics are the culmination of poor diet, like we talked about in the beefy nacho, but it's also the encouragement of hyper emotions and always being on edge, always feeling like you are in survival mode, having to have those emotions and not knowing or being aware of them, so your body is just storing that energy as best as it can because you haven't made yourself aware enough to even process it. It can show up as ailments in the body. So you've got to make sure you're taking care of your mind, taking care of your balance. It's necessary because these things, it don't go in, it don't come out the way it go in. We think that the thing that made us cry is the thing that'll make us feel better once we get it back at it. And that's not true. If you have just life experiences that you don't that impact you, but you don't get to talk about, if you don't let that out, it's gonna come out one way or another. But it's the difference between the choice of how you process it or it forcing its way out and then having negative effects on your relationships, the impacts on your loved ones, because the people closest to you, let's face it, and again, this is not your Sundays where it's not your opinion, it's not Nacho's opinion. When you are you dealing with unprocessed emotion, the first people you gonna hurt is the ones closest to you, the ones that deal with you all the time. Them the people you're gonna go after, and they don't deserve it. And if you can be aware that, you know what, even if I don't think I need to just spend some time balancing my mind, let me do it anyway, just to make sure I'm putting consistency behind trying to do the right thing, trying to keep myself in balance. Because when we have loved ones in our lives, we impact them whether we know it or not, whether we see it or not. And when we can show up as our best selves by being aware of ourselves in a way that we take such good care of ourselves that it ultimately permeates into us taking care of those around us, we create a healthy community. So the healthy part starts with us. So in this portion of the veggie nacho, we are looking at making sure we are processing emotions so that those emotions don't end up stored in our organs and causing us challenges in our gallbladder, our heart, our kidneys, the liver. Let's talk about the liver for a second. Where my folks that's you know, they want all the smoke at. If you want to put a one in the chat, if you want all the smoke, got all the anger. Anger is stored in your liver. So if you are one of those people who you don't have, you know, you go from issue to anger in 0.01 seconds, you want all the smoke, you going left, you with a roadmap and a rocket ship, that anger is getting stored in your liver. And if you are also a drinker, I think at this point in the information age, I don't need to elaborate on what alcohol does to the liver. So if you angry and you drink, your liver is paying for it. So let's make sure we're processing our emotions properly so that we don't have our body trying to figure it out because our mind refuses to be aware of it. We got to process those emotions so we can show up as our best balanced selves. And that allows us to have a clear head and make good decisions. We all got a bag to go get right. We got to think of a smart way to do it. We can do that when we come from a balanced state of mind. And the best way to do that is make sure we're dealing with our emotions. Don't let our emotions deal with us. We don't want to end up in the hospital dealing with things that show up in our bodies that we could have processed a long time ago. You could have let it go a long time ago and you just didn't. So this consistent anger sat in your body and showed up as something. Let's deal with that. That's what we're going to do in the veggie nacho. We are going to deal with our emotions. So moving on to the Nacho Supreme. Here in the Nacho Supreme, this is the supreme knowledge portion of our show where we talk about life nuggets. We give the advice that we wish we could have gave to our younger selves, and we share things here that will help us help ourselves. But before we get into that, I do want to slide over to my chat. My chat is lit. I appreciate y'all in 1,000 ways. First of all, Queen Mo Fire. Queen Mo Fire is the baddest mod. Because I don't know how to make mods yet. Don't hold it against me. I just don't know, but I'm learning. But Queen Mo Fire is one of the baddest mods out there, and she is definitely holding it down in the chat. Make sure you guys check her out. She has Queen Mo Fire Creations. She is MOFYAHCREATIONS on IG. Make sure you check her out. I appreciate you, Queen. Thank you for pulling up with me on Nacho Sundays. You can also, I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but you can catch Nacho Sundays on Fibonacci Brown's channel also. It is a dual broadcast. So if you don't catch me here on the EBL network, you can catch me over on the Fibonacci Brown channel. I appreciate Queen for putting that in the chat for me on my Nachi's YouTube. Thank you, Quick Cuts, for pulling up. I appreciate you. I also appreciate Joey 9 for pulling up. Thank you, Joey. Y'all show up. I swear. It's a big smile on my face every time I look at my chat because you guys y'all don't hold back. I appreciate you guys. So with that said, we are going to, again, get into the Nacho Supreme portion of our show, which is the Knowledge Supreme, the Life Nugget, where we talk about things that we wish we would have told our younger selves, things that that will help us get through this thing called life. And this week's Nacho Supreme, we're going to talk about triggers. I was like a few years old, when I realized that I have triggers when it comes to certain things that I don't get to spill out on other people. I just don't get to do that. And I came from a position of not really realizing that the way I was reacting to those triggers was really a trauma bond tool. And I just don't owe people that much information about me when it comes to intimate things like my triggers. I don't have to react that way when, even though it's sensitive to me, even though it's no one would even look at me like I'm doing anything wrong, really, if I were to respond to the trigger. But it's just to realize that it's my responsibility, because when it wasn't something I realized as my responsibility, I could eloquently go off on people for pushing that trigger. Eloquently, easily. I could make them really feel like it was their fault. That's how hurt I was. I could make them think it was their fault, not accepting that I had work to do, not accepting that, hey, just because this person mentioned something that they didn't know was a trigger to me doesn't mean I get to explode on them It's not their fault. They weren't aware, and the trigger is mine. And when you really think about what a trigger is, for those of you who might not understand what a trigger is, it's something that sets you off explosively, that can pour out into what might be considered inappropriate emotion and reaction. It's a reaction like a gun. You literally pull a trigger and somebody explodes. So the trigger is mine to control. So when you don't look at it that way, you basically say that you put yourself in other people's hands and allow them to pull the trigger, as opposed to it being your trigger and controlling when you let that bullet go. So I want to implore you, especially if you are young people, if you are one of those hot-headed youngins that want to smoke, if you want to if you not gonna be no punk, and you ain't gonna let nobody play you and do all the, if you just really want to go left quickly, consider controlling your triggers. Because I know each generation has their things, but these young people, y'all got, y'all got the internet, y'all got, addies to drop, you got pull up energy, and y'all are really pulling up, hurting each other. And you need to recognize your internal triggers before you are jumping in your car ready to pull your external triggers. So I'm really hoping that if you are watching out there on Nacho Sundays, where it's Nacho opinion is Nacho's opinion, I need you guys to really get your self-awareness into a place that you have a series of channels that you go through before you jump in your vehicle and go pull up on somebody ready to pull a different trigger. You can recover from somebody saying something to you. You can recover from somebody making a mistake in their assumption about you. Things can be discussed, but it's going too far. So if we can, the sooner we can identify our triggers, and the more we are seasoned at being in control of our triggers, we can move into the next season of awareness. We can move into the next season of enlightenment, because we're prepared to be there. But as long as we on the edge of controlling our triggers, everything is always, I'm just a step away from losing it, you're not going to be able to successfully grasp the lesson, so that you can get the wisdom from it to be able to share it with the generations who are going to need that wisdom, that are coming up behind you. As long as you stay on the edge of just getting it, you don't get to go through the lesson. So we need to, and I mean everybody, I'm not pointing anybody out. Again, this is Nacho Sundays, where it's not your opinion, it's Nacho's opinion. And in Nacho's opinion, we all need to be looking at what our triggers are. We need to evaluate ourselves. We need to be looking at ourselves so that we can get control of our triggers, and so that we're not exploding on people, and especially the ones that we love. We need to make sure that we are not taking out our lack of self-awareness on the people in our faces, because they're there. It's not fair to them. And really, truthfully speaking, it's not fair to you. Get bougie about you. If that's the kind of talk you like, get bougie about you. Ball out about you. Whatever will make it, whatever trigger it for you. But take care of you. Get some balance. Get aware of the things that set you off. Get you some tools in between issue and anger, so that you don't have to jump to anger so fast. Stop bragging about being angry. Ain't nothing like a quiet riot. Stop telling everybody what you're gonna do, about to do, if you're really Billy Badass, excuse me. But stop talking about it. Being calm in a situation goes way further in a situation than just going around trying to see how loud you can be. Center yourself. Let's get some balance. Let's get aware of our emotions so we can process them. And let's control our triggers. Okay? I appreciate y'all for pulling up. I see, first of all, let me shout out Queen Kinesis in my chat. She is definitely helping with the tools for triggers, saying coping mechanisms. That's exactly what I'm talking about. We have to have our coping mechanisms. We have to have our tools. Kinesis, I want to officially tell you happy belated birthday on my show. I do hope you enjoyed your day. And with that said, we have reached the end of the NACHO, y'all. It was a good grub. I'm full. I hope you full. Again, make sure you pull up here every Sunday at 6 p.m. on NACHO Sundays, where it's NACHO Opinion is NACHO's Opinion, hosted by me, Fibonacci, Big NACHO Brown. I will check you guys out next Sunday, 6 o'clock. Peace.
We appreciate everybody for stopping by. Make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button. And don't just watch the battle, be part of the battle. All you gotta do, look in the description, click the link to the Discord, be part of the audience live.
Whole show, y'all wasn't gonna say nothing. I ain't get me no water, nothing. Thirsty as I don't know what. Y'all, I see how you do me.